What's going on? It's Nick from the Designs Academy, and today I'm bringing you guys a quick tutorial on drawing and also coloring in / painting graffiti letters. I'm going to use today this erasing putty, this 4B pencil. Pencil type doesn't really matter, I just like this pencil, but I mean it's going to be for some really quick sketching at the beginning, so you could probably use a normal 2B, whatever, the ones you use at school, I don't know what they're called. I'm using this felt tip pen. This is just a black pen for outlining it, and if that doesn't work, I think I might be using this paint pen, but either way, I mean, if you want to use a Sharpie or something like that, some kind of black marker or anything like that's going to be okay. And then I've got a pencil sharpener for sharpening my pencil. This is pretty simple. I'm not sure what color I'm gonna use yet, but it doesn't really matter what color you use as long as you've got, let's see, as long as you've got a range of about 3 different shades of that color, like the color, a lighter shade, and a slightly darker shade, and then something that kind of complements it that's a bit darker. But you'll see that in a little bit. So for this, I'm gonna just draw DA for Designs Academy. I don't really want to write out a whole word right now, but obviously this applies for any sort of word or letters that you want to do. So what I'm gonna do right now is just sketch out lightly the Designs Academy, just DA, just really quick. I'm gonna do my lines super light because I'm using Prismacolors to color this in, and lines will show up really good under those colors. So we got our quick outline, and you'll notice that I just drew them as if I was gonna draw, you know, the normal letters. So now I'm gonna go over this quick outline, and I'm just gonna bubble them in real quick. And the way I like to make bubble letters is by drawing ovals around the shapes. These are kind of tricky a little bit. Do something like that, and then A. And it doesn't matter if you overlap your lines on this, because this is just seeing what kind of shapes you want. This a little smaller. Alright, now that we've got the quick sketch of the bubble letters, you're going to go ahead and pick whatever lines you want. Just make them a bit darker than the lines that you drew earlier. But again, you want to keep it light still, because ultimately these lines are going to get erased in a little bit. So let's go through. It might be a little bit too big, so let's go ahead and bring it down over here. That. Okay, and now we have our sketch for our 2 letters, or in my case 2 letters, your whatever word. So yeah, now at this point you're going to grab whatever black marker you're using, and you're going to outline over these lines that you've picked. I'm using this felt tip marker, and it's always good when you're making, you know, like big thick line, or not necessarily thick, but you know, lines you want to make sure are nice and smooth to pull towards you, because you're going to get a lot of a straighter line. This felt tip marker is not the best, because as you can probably hear, it drags on the paper a little bit, and it's going to give you a little bit of resistance on the paper, which is not good for the quality of the line. And obviously I can't rotate the paper quite as easily, so I'm just going to keep it in one stationary position, and I'm probably going to have to split up my lines. When I'm outlining in like black, like Sharpie or this felt tip marker, I try not to break the lines as much, because obviously you get things that start looking like that, where they the line, you can obviously see that it's started and stopped, kind of like when you're writing with a Sharpie. Just normally, if you stop for a second, like if I'm drawing a line and I stop, keep going, with a Sharpie it'll bleed a little dot, and that's not good for, you know, obviously the way the line looks. you don't want that happening, or you want to try and prevent it as much as you can. So we'll go like this, one last line. I can't actually see that line, so that's good. Alright, pretty good. This felt tip marker is not all that dark of a black. Probably want something a little darker, and maybe at the end of the video I'll go back over it with that paint marker. But yeah, so once you've got, oh, I missed a little spot here. Once you've got your outlined letters in your black, you're going to go through and erase all of the sketched lines you did with the pencil. Doesn't really matter what kind of eraser you use. I would recommend using something like this, like an erasing putty, or those pink erasers that you can pretty much find at any like school supply area or any art shop. But yeah, bled a little bit there, but not that big of a deal. You might want to wait depending on what kind of marker you use to outline, so it doesn't bleed like it did right there. And you want to make sure you erase also over the black lines, because there's going to be all the lines that you drew there. I'm going to fix this area up here real quick. Make it look a little smoother. I'm doing this kind of quick, so these lines are not going to be very good, but it should give you guys the general idea. Yeah, there we go. Alright. So once you've got your letters outlined with the black, you're going to go back with your pencil and you're going to draw a shadow, and this type of shadow is called a drop shadow. Those of you that use cinema are going to know what I'm talking about, just from using that effect in Photoshop. Just try and match it as if it was projecting backwards onto the paper. I've done a pretty boxy as far as like a bubble letter style goes. I've done this fairly boxy. You can see there's some hard edges there. But you just want to go behind it and kind of mirror it in the shape of the letters as best you can. These curves are sometimes kind of hard if you've never done any sort of shadows before. And I might do something like that, kind of give it a little bit of a shadow. And once I finish this line, we'll be done. Alright, so now I've sketched out our drop shadow. I'm not going to drop shadow back there because it's so tiny you won't see it. Now we're going to get our black marker again and outline the drop shadow. So kind of hard to see with the tripod in front of me, but these lines aren't going to be very good, but they're going to be close enough to get the point of across. Alright, so now that we've got our drop shadow outlined, I'm going to get our eraser again and go through, give it a second. Alright guys, sorry about that. I had to grab my colored pencils from under my desk. I'm going to be doing the main letters green, so I've got these greens here. Really, I'm not sure if I'm going to need 4 or not, but what you're going to need is a sort of a base color, a darker color, and then a sort of a lighter color, and that should be good. I just grabbed this one just in case these ones didn't work. And then you're going to need 2 colors for your drop shadow. Well, 1 color, but I'm going to use purple and this blue since I couldn't find like a darker purple than this. I'm just going to use purple and blue. But yeah, so we're going to come through with our base color green here. Just grab that. And we're going to do a bit of a highlight. Now, since I'm using pencils, it's going to be kind of weird. If you're using markers, obviously you could just do a marker stroke right here and it would be, you know, a good thickness for this. But since I'm using pencils, I'm having to kind of come through and make a bit of a colored in area, if you will. But yeah, just enough so it kind of shows up, and I'll get one over here, and you're just going to do this for all your letters. I've only got 2, so it should only take a second here. Top and bottom, this isn't really side specific or anything like that. We're doing it left, right, everywhere. Something like that. You don't want to just do a solid, trace all the way around. You want to give it a little bit of space in between, because what we're ultimately going to do is fill in that area with the lighter color. So let's pull this out a little bit. Get that in there. Move on to the A. I've picked these 2 letters, two really kind of weird looking letters. Obviously some other letters are going to look different. You want to make sure you got a nice area covered on the bottom here for this, because the next step with this color is going to require you to have this bottom area kind of filled out a bit. So I'm going to make sure that we got a good area with that. Alright, now that we've got our first color laid down, we're going to use a method. It's a coloring / shading method that I actually showed in my shading tutorials video. It's called hatching, and it's just lines in one direction. And I'm going to be going vertically. And so I'm just going to come through and going to come off of these bottom pieces and come through and just make some vertical lines, moving up quite a ways throughout the letter. I'm going to bridge these gaps a little bit. My whole desk is like shaking from this. And maybe get some darker bits down here a little bit. Yeah, just kind of covering that bottom area a little bit with this going up. Start to cover the letter with some color. Alright, now that we've got that. Alright guys, so with this part, since I'm using a pencil, I'm going to come through here and make some more kind of independent looking lines. With a marker you could get a lot kind of better like individual strokes, but since I'm using a pencil, I've got to come through and press down a little harder to get some texture, showing that hatching a little more, not just a solid green. Alright, so now that we've got that first color laid down, we're going to come through with our lighter green. I couldn't find anything any lighter than this, so this is just going to have to do. This is going to be the color that we're using to color in the middle. So we're going to come in here at the middle. Hopefully you guys can see the difference of color on the camera. It's fairly obvious, but also it's kind of a very, very similar color to the bottom one. This one's just a little bluer, so hopefully it shows up okay on the camera. Ideally you would like to have your primary color be like, for instance, you could use, just your normal base red color, and then this middle color would be like a lighter reddish pink, and then you can move on to a dark red for the bottom. But this should be okay. We're just going to color up into the middle, and you notice I merged it in with this green just to kind of blend it a little bit better. I'm going to come through and kind of fix some of these areas a little bit, give it a bit of a more solid looking outline. Just a little bit here. Cut this part off. Hello? What? Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hey.
What's up?
Are you home?
Yeah.
You wanna get on Skype?
I will in a little bit. I gotta finish filming this tutorial.
Okay, well I'm only gonna be here for not very long, so I've got to check.
Okay, well when I get back on, I'm probably gonna play Counter-Strike, so...
Yeah.
Alright, I'll call you on Skype in a bit.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Sorry guys, my phone was ringing there. So yeah, now that we've got that middle color, we're gonna move on. Alright guys, sorry, I forgot, pause for a second, I forgot to mention that you need to come in through the top as well with this lighter color, and then kind of leave a little bit of a white area in the middle. That's just gonna provide a space for our next color. Also mix it up a little bit. Not gonna be a whole lot of this light color on top for these letters, just the way I've drawn them. So for my last color, I'm actually not gonna use a different. I'm gonna use a lot bluer of a green. Let's see, what is this color called? True green. So this is a little bit, as you can see, if I draw out a line here and then I draw out this, similar, but it's a little bit of a different color. Let me see if I can find something even more different here. That's not really doing it for me. Here we go. Let's see. Now we've got, this one's a bit more of a teal. Still very similar. Hold on a sec guys, I'm going to figure out what color I'm going to use. Alright guys, here we go. It took a second, but I found this color right here that is kind of a warmer green, and that's going to serve as our sort of last color up here, and it's just going to go into that white area that we left with the light color, and this just kind of gives it a little bit of a different little shading up here. Ideally I'd like the color difference between these greens to be a little more, but I might go back through and fix that later, because you really want you know, your light and your mid green to kind of stand out, and they're not as much here. So let me go through and make this a bit darker. I might even use a different green altogether to get it a little bit of a different look here. All these greens are just really like blue greens, and it just makes them blend all together, which you want sometimes, and other times like this you kind of want each color to kind of stand out on its own. So we're just going to leave it for now. So we've got all of our greens laid down, and now we're going to go through, I'm going to grab a really dark blue for this part. You know, you're going to want to use a color that's like, if I were using pink per se, I might want to use like a dark purple, you know, something where like with these greens, you know, if you went dark, you could probably blend it together with the blue, and that's what we're going to use here, and that's just going to kind of come down and be all along the bottom here, and again I'm going to use really heavy, like a lot of pressure here. I'm going to try and create some of those lines again. Got a little crazy on that one, but doesn't matter too much. Kind of give it sort of that kind of some more texture, that sort of hatched look, with the lines sort of individualized, and again just kind of to use a different color, you know, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. Alright, so now we've got all of that. Let me just grab this real quick and fix this corner down here. These ones are not perfect by any means. I've done this super quickly and I didn't really have the colors that I wanted when I was starting this. But yeah, now we've got all those colors laid down. We're going to do a quick outline against the outside. Now we're going to take our middle color, which I believe is here. It gets kind of confusing with these Prismacolors colors because they're all so similar. I'm going to come through here, and I'm going to start going right up against the black, and you're going to want to leave a little white area in here, and that's going to serve as a bit of another highlight. Again, this will be a lot easier with markers, because it's a lot easier to get like a consistently thick line with markers, whereas with these pencils I've kind of got to build it up. I'm not going to worry about the highlight on the left, we're just going to have it on the right side. So let's just color in this white area and make sure we leave it maybe merge it about there and start it. We're just going to color in this left side, and then pick an area again down here that we can start to highlight again, and then color in here, and it's showing through on this felt tip, so depending on what you've decided to use to color in this, you might want to go over that black again at the very end. And I didn't leave quite a big enough highlight here, but that's okay. The D is probably going to be the best example for this quiz. So that's it for that outlining part. I don't want to leave this totally white. I'm gonna kind of go in just really light with this color. If you're using markers, you're probably gonna want to leave this part white, because you don't really have any control over the darkness of the marker, unless of course you've got a nice array of colors and you feel that you have a good color that you could fill in there. And since I'm using Prismacolors, you can see they have this really like pencil-y look. I'm going to come through with my white Prismacolor and just come through and blend them a little bit, kind of give them a good cohesive feel. For those of you that either haven't used colored or Prismacolors before, or just aren't very familiar with them, when you use this white and you kind of apply some pressure and go over it all, it lightens it a little bit, which is, you know, just one of those things. You could use it as a white pencil, but it also helps to blend the colors together really nicely. So you can see, once I move my hand here in a second, the difference that, you know, here that I've colored in with the white pencil already, and then the difference between this and the A over here that still has that really grainy look. So I'm going to go really quickly here. I don't want to spend too much time. Now I'm going to go through and blend this letter all together. Now obviously if you were using markers, you wouldn't need to go through this step. I honestly prefer markers for this. I just didn't have any when I needed to for this video, so maybe I'll throw up a video some other time of me doing this with just some cheap markers that I can get at the store. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for the colors on the inside. Now we're going to move on to the drop shadow, and I'm going to use my purple as this color, or as the drop shadow color. And I'm just going to come in and color this in. It's really bleeding over into the black because that felt tip marker, like I said earlier, is not very dark. So you guys are probably going to be able to see this. But you know, maybe if you want to go through and outline it again later, it could make it look a little nicer. I don't really care how this looks as much. Just for the sake of showing you guys, I've done a pretty sloppy job on this so far because I'm just going fast. And I'll just color this in. So now that you've got that color laid down, you're going to want to grab like a darker color of the whatever you use for the drop shadow. I don't know if I have a darker purple, so I might just end up using, yeah, I'm just gonna use this brown, but you're gonna want to use a darker color of whatever you use. This should do alright. And we're just gonna go through and kind of give it like some lines of like just some spaced out lines around it, just to kind of give it a little bit of a better look. And let me try out the blue real quick and see which one looks. Alright, yeah, we're gonna use this blue instead of the brown. But yeah, you're just gonna go through and kind of give it some lines. I don't know if you've ever seen like 2D recreated, like when there's a shiny material, it'll have these lines, and I just think it gives it a little more of a texture. Went over there a little bit, but oh well. And then I'm going to come through with my white pencil again and blend these a little bit. Come through, blending these purples and blues all together. And there we go, guys. I'm gonna fix a couple of things on here, and I'll show you guys in a second what it looks like when I'm all done. Alright guys, so as you can see I did a little bit to it, trying to make it a little bit better. I kind of had some pretty crummy colors to work with, so I tried to fix it here at the end. As you can see I used my really fine tip paint marker and I added some kind of scratch looks. I think it looks pretty cool. Also I added some outer glow and a little bit of a pink cloud behind it. You guys can do whatever you want, you know, to customize the letters a little bit more to your liking. But yeah, as that was kind of the basics of graffiti letters. You kind of want to merge different shades of the colors and use black and colored outlines. These colored outlines really, if you use bright colors, like if you had, let's say, pink letters and you use like a neon green to outline them, it looks really sweet, especially outside of like a black outline. Just gives it a little bit of a, I don't know, a little bit of, it's just a little thing you can add to it. With spray paint it looks really cool. Also, I mean, as you can see I'm using pencils, so some of this stuff would look different depending on what medium you decided to use. But that's about it, guys. Look forward in the next couple of weeks to new speed art. I'm going to be painting a pair of shoes. It's going to be pretty sweet. I don't know, I'll have cool speed art of that. We're doing the Q&A with Hayden and I this Tuesday for the vlog, so look forward to that, and 4th of July vlog after that. So yeah guys, take it easy, and as always I'll see you guys next week.